This is a Smitty Middy Show, web exclusive.
Welcome back to another Smitty and Middy Show web exclusive, brought to you by Kev's Cards, your one-stop shop for amateur trading cards. Joining us today, my good friend Dylan Baker, the host of 2ELEVENS Baseball Talk. Also, I hear he does some broadcasts with me with the London Majors, and he may just be the youngest play-by-play broadcaster in the Greater Ontario Junior Hockey League. Dylan, thanks for joining us. I've recently learned that he is 15 now.
For 4 months.
For 4 months. Yeah, 4 months.
Yeah, listen, guys, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking some baseball.
All right. First, I know a lot about baseball, I feel like. And 2ELEVENS doesn't make any sense to me. So what the hell does that mean?
All right. So 2ELEVENS, my birthday is December 11th, right? My dad's birthday is July 11th, and my brother's birthday is April 11th. So we were 3/11s, right? Because we all had a birthday on the 11th, just crazy coincidence. But my brother is younger than I am and not able to host a podcast. So it's just my dad and I, and that's where we got the 2/11s from, because we're both born on the 11th.
So we were overthinking it.
Yeah, we were way overthinking it.
Yeah.
One day when your brother comes on, it'll be the 3/11s podcast, I take it.
Probably, yeah. If he ever does come on, we'll probably change the name.
We were talking about 9 innings, and then you
Nine
add
innings,
two,
add two is
and that's
11.
Like we were going way out into the woods. So
yeah, no
You
extra
definitely-
inning jokes, nothing. Yeah,
You-
just birthdays.
but I guess it's a cool story. Do you want to start with Les Canadiens, or do you want to go right to baseball?
I'd rather pass on that for now. You know, they could turn things around, but let's
go to the
Let's
let's head over to South. Let's
You
talk
were
about
talking enough for the Sens, so your turn.
what the hell's wrong with the Canadians.
Well, I think under Claude Julien, he lost the room. I think that's what happened there. And I heard a rumor that some of the rookies got together and asked the veterans to talk to the GM, and it was just a whole disaster. But the power play wasn't working. Nothing was going right for them. So I'm glad that they've got Ducharme as the head coach and Burrows working that power play now. Hopefully they'll be able to turn things around.
So like if they win that overtime game, which by the way, we can have that discussion because I do believe that was goaltender interference. I've been saying that for a while. But if they win that game, does Julien not get fired? Like, was it that simple, or was he gone either way? Because that would look terrible if you win a game in overtime. You split against Ottawa, but you take 3 of 4, like whatever, and then you get fired. That would look kind of strange.
It would look kind of strange, but I think that Julien was going to get fired eventually because he was just making some questionable decisions on his lines and stuff like that. So I think that if it wasn't that game, it was going to be the next one or the one after that, because they were in a slump. Last season, they had 2 8-game losing streaks under Julien with nearly the same team that they had the year prior when they almost made the playoffs with 96 points. So I think it was a matter of time for him, and he was going to be fired mid-season if the Habs kept trending in that direction.
Well, he was fired, and as we know, the Canadiens are they're all right, I guess. Like they're all right. I don't like to talk about them, but
is this coaching staff going to be?
No.
Is this the coaching staff of the future? Or is this basically we cannot get anyone up?
Dylan loves them. Dylan loves
exactly.
them.
Is this like we can't get anyone up here right now, so you guys are taking over, or is this what they saw? Because really, when you're looking at the changing of the power play and the changing of how the game's being played, like the actual fundamentals of the game aren't going to change that much moving from assistant to a head coach, because that's what he's been learning under.
Yes, and Ducharme has been under Julien, or was under Julien, for several years, but Ducharme is a much more offensive-minded head coach than Julien is, and I think that's been shown in the first few games. So I think he's implementing a bit of a different system. Certainly some things he took from Claude Julien, who won a Stanley Cup in 2011. He's a good coach, but I think that the Ducharme and Julien differ in their philosophies offensively, and then having Burrows coaching that power play is going to be huge for them. I think it's the coaching staff of the future. The only way I see it possibly changing is that they take the AHL head coach that has had lots of success developing players, and they bring him up. But Ducharme has been around for several years. They've been grooming him to take over for Julien. It was just a matter of time.
No, let's see Patty Waugh. Let's bring him up. That would be amazing.
All right, Dylan, let's talk some baseball here. The Toronto Blue Jays are really changing the world here with this field cam. It has got to be the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Fantastic. I can't thank them enough for goddamn field cam.
I know I'm going to get some heat. I figured I was going to get some heat for that tweet today. But listen, with the circumstances that we have right now, with no TV broadcast, no radio, I will take anything. And the fact the Blue Jays went out on their own and did something is great. There's no audio. I tuned into the game the other day. wasn't exciting. I tuned out after a couple pitches, but it's something, right? So if you need that baseball fix, it's something there. And we had some healthy debate, and then it turned into a debate over chicken fingers.
Well, I feel like that was a good analogy before
it was a terrible
great analogy
for a big guy.
5 chicken fingers for dinner, right? If I explain it in person, maybe this will make more sense. You have 5 chicken fingers for dinner. Mom gives
Nobody
you 5
was
chicken
confused
fingers.
by the verbiage. That wasn't the
Mom and Dad take away 3 chicken fingers. You're now down to 2. Everyone gets upset. They take away all the TV games. They take away the chicken fingers. Everyone gets upset. Then they're like, all right. Here's field cam. Field cam is AKA 1 extra chicken finger.
No, I got that. I thought it was great.
I was hungry at work. I was hungry at work.
I was in class and I wasn't on my phone. So I keep in mind, I get out of class. It's 2:00. I look at my phone and I've got like 10 Twitter notifications. I was like, what is happening? And then all I see is chicken finger talk in my reply. So
give it to Noah to bring food up. But here's my problem. For one, like you said, no audio. So for a guy who drives for a living and loves to listen to baseball games, very distracting to have to watch a game with no audio while you're driving. You shouldn't do it. I didn't do it. Sorry, company. And if you want to follow the baseball when it's in play, impossible. It's almost impossible. So basically what they did is they said, okay, well, we've got a camera here for like our calls when the season finally comes. So let's turn it on. That's all that they did. And I realize it's not the Jays' fault, more than likely. I mean, we don't know what happened, but it's not the Jays' fault, more than likely, that there is no call, that there is no radio, there is no TV right now. But so, yes, thank you for trying, but you did a shitty job.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great, right? Like it's not anything special. And I mean, looking at it, there's a tiny little field cam in the corner, and then there's the big one that shows you every pitch. They couldn't even bother to flip between the two. When a ball is put in play. And it is very hard to track that ball, like you mentioned. What I don't understand is Ben Wagner is in Dunedin. Like, he lives in Dunedin in the winter. He's there. Why is he not calling baseball games? Even if it's not on the radio, even if it was just this field cam, why is he not calling the games? He's there.
Yeah, he's tweeting about it as it's happening. He's live tweeting. Literally, just give him a microphone, put him on Facebook Live, and let us listen if you don't want to go over the airwaves.
And me and Dylan, that setup that they have is essentially what we do for the majors, and I can tell you the budget for that is not very expensive. Right? They didn't put a whole lot of work into that.
The most expensive is the chicken fingers.
Yeah. Free food in between innings. But let's move on. I won't shit talk the field cam too much because, like you said, for the people that are really craving baseball, it's a good thing. Dylan, let's talk about the actual Blue Jays and the actual on-field, the team that the Jays are putting together. Is there anyone that has impressed you so far? I mean, one guy that comes to mind for me is Rowdy Tellez. It looks like he is having a great spring from what we've been able to see so far. And everyone that's down there says that this could be a big year for him.
I completely agree with anybody who says that Rowdy Tellez could have a big year this season. I think he's primed. I think he's ready to go. And I think this could be Rowdy Tellez's year. I don't think you can justify, based on Tellez's performance this spring, having Randall Grichuk take up his at-bats. Grichuk is a guy who's been inconsistent with the bat. And if Tellez puts it all together, I think you got to have him in that lineup, especially in a lineup that is very, very, very righty heavy, having that big, powerful lefty bat, even if he's hitting 8, because this lineup is very deep. I don't care. I want him in that lineup most days of the week and give Grichuk some starts here and there. But I don't think you can justify Randall Grichuk taking the spot of Rowdy Tellez in this Blue Jays order at all. Another guy who's impressed me is Steven Matz. He's had 2 outings, looked very solid in both. I don't believe he's allowed to run. And I think, maybe Pete Walker has been able to put it all together. Because he seems to be able to do that. And Matt's a guy who was inconsistent and has dealt with injuries as well. It's good to see that he's having success, at least early on in the spring.
Here's my issue, or my fear. Here's my fear with Rowdy, because that's a better way to put it. I feel like he's going to have a good start to the year, and they are going to ship him off for something. That's kind of my fear with it, because you can't move Randall's contract. I think it's going to be almost impossible without eating 80% of that contract. So if you're not going to move Randall and they're giving you a piece, because another guy that's kind of impressed me, and I don't even know his first name, Tyler White, I think. Yeah. Tyler. I think it's Tyler. That's a great name. So,
but T White's how it shows up on the score app. So
I think he's got like 3 home runs this year and a bunch of RBIs. Every time it shows up, it's like his name is on every game. So, and he's also one of those kind of guys. So when you see the backlog at first base and in DH, I feel like Rowdy is just that odd guy out that's going to go. And I don't like that, because he is a guy who I've had on my fantasy teams who has produced in when he's gotten the at-bats. Last year he got the at-bats and he's produced. But when we're going to other guys too, I think Robbie Ray has looked really, really good. And that moves me to the starting rotation in general. Do you believe in this starting rotation? Did they miss out? Maybe not going and paying a Tyrone Walker or a Jake Odorizzi or a James Paxton?
I think back to Ratty for a second. I think that he could get shipped off. I think Lourdes Gurriel is another guy that they could get rid of. I don't want them to get rid of either of those guys. If at all possible, you get rid of Randall, even if you got to eat a big chunk of that contract. I think it's worth it. The starting rotation, as it currently sits, I don't believe in it. I think Steven Matz is better suited for the bullpen from what we've seen from him in past years. It's possible that Pete Walker changed him up and he's all ready to go. But Ryu, Pearson, Ray, I can believe in a little bit. Then you get to Matz and Roark, maybe Stripling. I think that the Jays need to give some of the young guys a shot. Like I think that they didn't necessarily miss out on not having or not signing some of these guys because I believe in the young talent that this team has. I think Thomas Hatch should get a shot at this rotation. I think Anthony Kay should get a shot in the rotation. I think Julian Merriweather is worth a look as well. I think there are guys that deserve starts that aren't going to be getting them because Tanner Roark is in this starting rotation, because Ross Stripling is likely going to be in the starting rotation. He's a great arm, lots of versatility. He can come in and pitch when you need him. He can start when you need him. But I think that the Jays should be giving Thomas Hatch a look in this rotation. From what we saw last year, when he's hitting upper 90s and has a wicked changeup, I would love to see that guy in the starting rotation. And I think he deserves a spot. I don't believe in it when there's Tanner Roark in it and when there's potentially inconsistent Steven Matz and an even more inconsistent Robbie Ray.
We talked about, when did we talk about Pearson? Was that a couple weeks ago?
Last podcast.
Last podcast. We talked about Pearson. Does the injury trouble with him worry you at all? Like going down the road, even this season in the future years, like, is this something that we need to really be worried about?
I'm not an expert in injuries and in medicine, but I think that it's something that's worth watching because he has had a bit of an injury history. Now, keep in mind, in Dunedin, when he got hurt, it was because he got a line drive to the hand and he broke his hand or something like that. It wasn't like he did something himself. But I think that the injury history in the current injuries, there's something to look at. He's a big, tall guy, and I hope he's got the frame to keep up with the 100-mile-an-hour things. I think eventually, if he gets an elbow injury, he's relegated to the bullpen. I look at a guy like an Alek Manoah, who is a big guy. I think they're both 6'6", but Manoah is a big, strong dude, and I think he can sustain that high velocity and the innings. But I think Pearson is a guy who we could see shift to the bullpen if this injury trouble keeps up in the rotation. Just like Julian Merriweather, who was expected to be a starter, he's got the high velocity, but it looks like he's headed towards a bullpen role because of his injury history. I think it's something to look at. I think the Blue Jays want Nate Pearson to be a starter. I want Nate Pearson to be a starter, but if he continues to run into this injury trouble, it's not going to be a thing he's able to do.
Yeah, and I think they missed that exact thing with Aaron Sanchez. When they had to make that choice, was he going to be the pen or not? And we saw in 2015 in the playoff run, like he was coming in with high 90s, ridiculous sink to his fastball, really sharp slider, and he didn't have to worry about holding it back. He didn't have to worry about spotting up. He had to worry about throwing as hard as he could and getting it past hitters. And do I want Nate Pearson to be in the starting rotation? Yes. Would he be effective throwing 101, 102? He's throwing 100 miles an hour as a starter. And we all know that starters hold back a bit. You can't throw at 100% every single pitch.
Yeah.
So can he throw 103? Like, is that a possible thing for him to throw if he's coming in for one inning? My problem is like all of the players that are getting hurt. And I heard Will Middlebrooks on the radio this morning talking about how, when he was in high school, if a kid was throwing 90, 91, then that was hard. That was a hard thrower. Now kids are hitting triple digits in high school. And is that affecting these injuries? Because like your body's not ready to throw that fast when you're that young.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's difficult for your body even when you're an adult. So I think it definitely is having an effect on that. And I think we've seen Pearson touch 104 in the Futures game in 2019 in Cleveland. I think he's able to reach those extra high velocity fastballs out of the bullpen. But I think that the wear and tear that gets put on these players at such a young age because they want to impress scouts with high 90s, I think it does shorten your high velocity years, because we see these guys that build up in the minor leagues. If they're built up, then that arm is only going to go downhill from there, because at a certain point, it's not going to be humanly possible to throw any harder. And I think that the arms of these guys, of these young pitchers are getting severely damaged by the fact that they throw so hard in high school, because that starts the decline of that arm much sooner.
Yeah, we're starting to see it's almost relatively new, right? These super hard throwing pitchers, right? Like lots of guys, it's not unheard of to have a guy on your team that throws 100 anymore.
I think every team has somebody throwing
one,
100.
right? Where if we go back even a decade, like 10 years ago, how many people in the league were throwing 100?
Well, let's
like
just
a handful, right?
Like let's honestly just think about the teams in the AL East right now, right? The Jays have a couple guys that can hit triple digits if need to be. You go over to Tampa Bay, they always have arms in the bullpen that are gonna be tickling the triple digits. I mean, you got Chapman in the Yankees. It's just it's common to see those triple digits.
But we're seeing these guys. It's somewhat new to have pitchers throwing in the triple digits. We don't really know how it plays out in the longevity of your career yet. Like we haven't seen someone, if they can go 15 years throwing 100. I hazard a guess not.
Yeah, it's actually kind of like when they bring somebody out of the pen and he's throwing 93, 94, you're like, who the hell is this guy? Like, why is he in a major league bullpen throwing this slow? And I mean, that's not slow.
Yeah, no, exactly. If anybody's ever seen 93 up close, it's not slow, right? It's still a very hard pitch, but by the new standards, it's not considered that hard. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Noah, by saying this is very new. And it's funny because it's new, but it's also quite common now. And it's become common very, very quickly. I don't think we can predict a career path for Nate Pearson and for all these guys who throw triple digits out of the starting rotation, because like you mentioned, we haven't seen the effects of that. We haven't seen enough pitchers throw at a high velocity over several seasons out of the starting rotation to say, okay, if Pearson follows the career path of X player, then he's not going to last that long in the starting rotation. I don't think we really know. My best guess is that I don't think he's able to sustain that out of the rotation. Maybe high 90s, but I don't think triple digits is going to be something we see from him very often. And I think that there's no real way right now to project the way a pitcher like Pearson is going to go.
All right, I have a couple exercises, and we won't go too much longer.
I don't like exercising.
I have a couple exercises for us. All right, you ready?
Jumping jacks.
First, no, we're not doing that. We are not doing physical exercises. Not a chance. We threw a baseball earlier, before we came in here, and my arm is already just, I feel like
hanging.
It's 3 times bigger than it should be. So I try and stay off my feet because it might hurt my arm. That's my logistics. So this is what I want to do first. First of all, I want to go through and I want to know the Blue Jays, who you think is going to be the top home run, the top ERA, and the top RBI guy, the top average guy this year. Those 3 things.
Home run, average, and ERA.
And ERA.
All right, we'll start with you, Dylan.
Okay, I think, do you want me to go one at a time or just hit you with all 3?
Yeah, let's go one. Let's go one at a time all the way around. So we can have a good solid conversation for our fans.
All right.
Okay, so I'll start with ERA. I think that there is no doubt that it's Hyunjin Ryu. I think that he's still a very effective pitcher. And in the past with the Dodgers, he's been a low ERA guy. You can't overuse him. If you overuse him, that thing's going to go way up. But I think the way the rotation is constructed, if we're only talking rotation pitchers, I think Hyunjin Ryu has the lowest ERA.
Yeah, I'd go with Ryu as well. Are we going just rotation guys, or are you going into the bullpen?
Yeah, you do whatever you want to, baby.
I'm going to stick with rotation guys because I feel like that's a fair way to do it. Ryu, I feel like, is going to have a fantastic year. I don't know why. I just have a feeling like he's going to come out there, and don't mark my words or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Ryu below like 250 ERA. I think he'll have a fantastic season. I don't know.
Ryu is the obvious pick. He has been an incredible pitcher for many years, and really being hid in LA for how many years behind the likes of Kershaw. I'm actually going to go off the board a little bit because you guys said Ryu, so I'm going to change it up because why not? I'm going to go with Ryan Baracki. Coming out of the bullpen as that hard throwing lefty with some incredible sink that we did see last year, and coming in with the high leverage innings, he just pitched really well. And I think that stuff is going to play, and he found something coming out of the bullpen. And it's tough for bullpen guys, right? Because you give up one run, one
bad game, and
right. And it's going to absolutely destroy your ERA. But with the confidence that this guy has shown from the bullpen, I think they found something with him. And I think he is going to be one of the best late inning guys in the league this year.
I agree with you. I think that's a very underrated pick because I think Barucki is a guy who can pitch in those late innings because he can hit that high velocity. But if you need him to throw 2 or 3, he's been a starter, right? So he can throw 2 or 3 innings if need be. And with that lefty arm, it's just an added asset for the Blue Jays. I think that's a very underrated pick, and I think it's very plausible.
And another guy that we just talked about, who was a starter, had some health problems, moved to the pen, mostly because of a shortened year and an odd year, but he found a new home for himself. But let's move on. Let's leave the one that's the biggest pick for the end. So we're gonna go to average. Let's do average.
I think Lourdes Gurriel Jr. has the highest average for the Blue Jays this year. I think he's a great bat to ball guy. I think that you're going to see a lot of doubles from him. I don't think he's going to go and hit a ton of homers for you, but I think he's a gap to gap hitter. He uses the whole field. He crushes the off speed. And I think that's great for him. I think that benefits him in a big way. And I think he's going to be the best hitter for average on this Blue Jays team.
I'm looking towards some top of the order guys, and there was a couple that were floating through my head. I'm going to go with Bo this year. I think that Bo is going to have a fantastic year. I really like the way he swung the bat last season, albeit a shortened season. But for me, Bo Bichette, I think, is going to have what I would call a breakout season. I'm looking for him to have a fantastic year, get on base a lot. Like, his average is going to be good, but I bet you he's going to draw a lot of walks. He's going to find a way on base. Look for that OBP for Bo to be like very high this year.
I mean, when you go out and you give a guy $150 million, I kind of hope that he's going to be at the top of most of your stats. And for a guy that I feel is going to be the leadoff guy in this lineup, he has shown that he is a plus average kind of guy, and he's coming to a new place in a ballpark that is hitter friendly, is putting it lightly. So yeah, pretty easily I'm going to go with George Springer.
I think those are great picks. I think a guy that we didn't mention that is possible is Marcus Samian too. He hit for a very high average in 2019 when he was second or third in the MVP voting. If he's on this year like he was that season, I think he can do it. The reason I go with Gurriel is he's done it in the past. I think he led the Jays in average either last season or the year prior, and I think that continues. I think Springer and Bichette are 2 and 3. I don't know who's second, who's third, but I think all 3 of them are going to be very, very close, and I think it can go either way.
The reason I wouldn't go with Samian is home run wise, I think he's going to have an incredible year, and maybe we'll get into that with the home runs. But average wise, he's coming from a place in Oakland with such a big outfield and a place that other teams come into, and they're just never comfortable because that stadium is so disgusting that you know what, he just has a lot of field to play with there. And now you're coming to a smaller ballpark. It's going to be easier for those outfielders to get to that ball that's maybe hit to the gap. So that's why I didn't go with Samian, but I respect your pick, or you respect your thoughts with Marcus Samian there. But let's go. Everyone wants the home runs.
All right. Home runs. I think Teoscar Hernandez keeps it up. I think he leads the team in home runs again. From what I saw last year, if that's his swing that he's taken into this season, I think he can do it. I think he's got plenty of power, and I think he's ready for another big year, another silver slugger in the outfield. I think he's not only going to lead the Blue Jays in home runs, I think he's going to be top 5 in the AL at least.
It's a bold statement. Top 5.
Hey, I wanted to trade Teoscar Hernandez after this year. I'm not a big believer in those sophomore years. I think the sophomore slump is a real thing because pitchers catch up to you. And I know he's not an actual sophomore, but coming off a year where people didn't pay attention to him because he didn't have that hitting repertoire, and now he is seen as one of the better hitters in this lineup. So pitchers are going to specifically watch his at bats and try and find ways to get him out. And that's tough for hitters to try and adjust. The adjust usually takes about a year to do. So I hate the sophomore, and I would have been okay with flipping him, but Noah?
I really like Teoscar, but because it's been brought up already, I'm going to go a little bit off the board. Not really off the board here. Rowdy Tellez, lefty bat. I think he's going to see a lot of right-handers this year. And because of that, like I already talked about, I think he's going to have a fantastic monster season. I think he's going to crush the ball out of the ballpark, and I'm going to take him as my pick.
I'm going to go real easy. You lose 40 plus pounds. You come in shape. You are one of the highest touted players to ever come through the minor league system. You had the best stats of any player in recent history from the StatCast era in the minor leagues. And now you're coming to camp in shape in a field where that plays really small, and you're going to crush the ball. So Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I think, has a chance to be at the top of the boards in the major leagues.
We are 20 plus minutes into the show, and this is the first time we've mentioned Skinny Vlad.
Man, he looks good. You don't realize how
Yeah.
skinny he actually is until you see him, until you see video of him and swings, and he looks good.
Oh, for sure. I watched him in the game against the Yankees, the only one that's been on TV, and he looked really good. And I think he was number 2 for me. I was stuck between Teoscar and Vladdy because I think Vladdy's going to have a really good year. I think it's going to be 25 plus, maybe even 30 plus home runs. Noah, your pick of Rowdy Tellez. My concern with him is he going to get the at-bats? Because I think all three of us agree that he should get the at-bats, but it's just a matter of will he? And if he's platooning with Grichuk at DH, that's not going to give you a lot of time to hit all those home runs. I think it's a great pick if he gets the at-bats, but that's not a guarantee right now.
And there's so many guys when you look at this year that you go, hey, yeah, he had a great year last year, but all you had to do was be hot for 2 months. That's all you had to do to have a good year, right? And especially with Rowdy playing in Buffalo, I think helped him extremely because there just seemed to be a jet stream heading towards that parking structure that all he had to do was make solid contact and that ball was leaving.
Well,
so
it's because they turned the wind on when the Jays were batting.
Yeah, exactly.
If you remember, they mess with the lights and they turn the wind on.
It was smart. It was a good move.
Best strategy they had all year. Vladdy, you mentioned Vladdy looking fantastic. They say the camera adds 10 pounds. Do you think that field cam takes off 10 pounds?
If it does, we need to get one.
You think it looks good on the field? We should get a field cam.
Yeah, we should. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, but that field cam is not super high quality, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Oh no, but it's great. It's the way of the future, I hear. All right, the last thing we're gonna get to, it's one more exercise I thought might be a little interesting. I want you to predict the AL East standings this year because I think the top 3 are really hard to predict, and mine might be a little bit off the board. So I'm gonna give you time to think while I go over mine. I'm going with the Toronto Blue Jays to win the AL East.
You said that last week.
I do, and you didn't fight back, and I thought that was weird because I thought you were going to fight back, but you didn't. I think that this lineup can rival the Yankees very easily, and I think the bullpen is extremely strong. I think that the pitching staff is going to fall into place. I don't think you're going to see Tanner Roark. I think you're going to end up seeing the Thorntons and the K's make their way into that rotation, and I think they're going to add a big arm, be it a Castillo, come the trade deadline. And I think that this team just has their floor is way higher than any other team in the division. And with that being said, I'm actually going to go with the Rays to finish number 2. I think that the pitchers that they brought in, that pitching staff looks really, it's filled with aces of the past at least. And we know how good Tampa Bay is at bringing those pitchers and circling back to their peak form. Their bullpen hasn't gone anywhere, and their lineup really hasn't changed from a team that made the World Series last year. And you know what? The Yankees finishing 3rd, I just think they're too flawed. I think Gary Sanchez hasn't proved he can stay on the field. I think that Giancarlo Stanton hasn't proved he can stay on the field. I think Aaron Judge hasn't proved he can stay on the field. I think Gleyber Torres hasn't proved that he's an absolute all-star. I think that rotation, when you get past the Coles and like Kluber hasn't thrown in 2 years. Montgomery really wasn't good last year. Taillon, right? Yeah. Taillon. He had a good year in Pittsburgh, but he was injured all last year too. There are so many question marks with that. The floor is, I could see them finishing near the bottom of this division. I really could. So when we look at those, that's my top 3. And then we're going Boston, and the lonely Orioles are just terrible.
I think they'll finish second last, the Orioles. Watch out. Go ahead, Dylan.
Well, you can't just say that and then send it to Dylan.
I can do whatever I want. It's my show. Our show.
If we got divorced,
I don't know if I'm going to go as bold as you guys did with your predictions. I think the Yankees still finish first in this division. I think that lineup is elite. I think they've got great bats all throughout. If they can stay healthy, they're going to win this division far and away. But in the past, you mentioned the injuries, and I think that in the past we've seen that next man up mentality that the Yankees have. They've been able to bring guys up and turn them into solid Major League Baseball players. I think it was 2 years ago or 3 maybe that they were able to bring some guys up when they had some injuries and they had success. And I know that there was less competition in the AL East. It was definitely a weaker division back then. But I think that it is very possible that if the Yankees can stay healthy, and even if they don't, they win this division. I think number 2, the Blue Jays, I think they can out-hit the Rays, and that rotation is not good. It is not a very good starting rotation. You have Ryu, who's going to be good. You have Pearson, who's likely going to be good. We hope when he comes back from injury, but we don't know when that's going to be. Potentially opening day, but likely after. I don't like the rotation, but that lineup is too good to say they're not finishing top 2 in this division. And then the Rays are third. You mentioned all the guys that they've kept. That bullpen is a revolving door. So they'll probably have some new guys up, even though they didn't lose that many in the offseason. I don't trust their lineup. I know that their rotation has a lot of new guys. They lost Charlie Morton to the Braves. They traded Blake Snell to the Padres. Tyler Glasnow is fantastic. Hopefully they can turn around Chris Archer, who was good for them and then went to Pittsburgh and was downhill from there. I don't necessarily trust him to turn that around. A guy in their rotation that I think could be underrated coming into the season, Josh Fleming. I think they can turn him into something. I think the Rays have a very high ceiling, but they also have a very low floor. And I'm worried about them a little bit. Boston's going to finish fourth. The Orioles are going to finish last.
New York, Toronto, Tampa Bay, Boston, Baltimore.
Isn't that what he just said?
Yep.
Well,
I can give him the same answer if I think it's true.
I was worried you were going to put Baltimore in third for a second. You had a big pause before you said Tampa Bay. I was like, how bold is he going?
No. I think, but here's my thing. I think that the Yankees, Blue Jays, and Rays will be within 6 games of one another. Is that possible? Yeah. I think it's possible. I think it's going to be tight, really tight up front. They're going to beat up on the Orioles and the Red Sox in this division, and I think those top 3 are going to be real tight. Like, it's going to come down to the final 2 weeks, and it's going to be close.
And I also think that there's a chance that those 3 teams finish top 6 in the AL. Like, is there really an up? Like, I think there's a really good chance that those 3 teams finish near the top of the AL, and unfortunately, probably one of them's not going to make the playoffs just because of how everything works out too.
I think it's possible that we have 3 AL East teams make the playoffs, 2 of them in the wild card game. I think the Twins could challenge the White Sox for that AL Central. I think the White Sox have that one. Twins could definitely challenge them. The A's and the Astros could go back and forth. But I think there is a scenario, and a plausible scenario, where you have the Yankees or whoever you want to win the division as the best record in the AL. And then you have 2 AL East teams in the wild card. And then the winner faces off against the winner of the AL East in the ALDS. I think we could see 3 AL East teams make the playoffs this season because of how good those top 3 are.
Well, Dylan, thanks for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, talk Canadiens, talk Blue Jays, and talk about that goddamn field cam.
I think it's great. I think it's underrated. I think
I know you
giving it too much hate. But thanks for having me on. It was great, guys.
Go ahead and tell everyone where they can find your podcast. I know you're not super busy right now on the podcast, but let our listeners know when they can go back, because you do have some pretty interesting guests on in the past that they can go back and listen to.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Noah. You can find 2ELEVENS Baseball Talk on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, wherever you get your podcasts, it's there. You can follow me on social media at dbakes11 on all social media platforms. And thanks again for having me on, guys.
Not a problem. Yeah. Thanks, Dylan.
Go follow him. Some great takes on cameras and chicken.
All the best, Dylan.